That one there, lovely. Thank you very much. There I am. So thank you to Mark and Vicky for inviting me here. It's been a fantastic event so far. Lots of new faces, lots of familiar faces as well. And it's great to be talking in front of you all today. So I am going to be talking about purchase lease options and the way that I've done deals and things like that. It's also absolutely an honor and a privilege to have Paul Collier in the audience here, because he is one of the guys that has inspired me and helped me in my purchase lease option journey as well, by listening to him, by learning what he's done, over 500 different deals. It's been great. And also being able to see what he does in his business and company as well has been truly inspiring as well. So building my portfolio, why am I stood in front of you all now? Well, I don't actually know, but I actually do have a visualization to come out and speak and try and inspire people and help people on their property journey. Why? Because I was sat where everybody else is sat. A lot of savvy investors in here as well, don't get me wrong. I do know that there's people starting out, there's people here with massive portfolios doing massive deals and things, and I think that's great. And I think there's a place for everybody when it comes to property investing. You know, a lot of us want to get out of the 9 to 5, want to get out of the rat race. We want to start businesses for ourselves as well. I've always looked at property investing as a business strategy, something that I want to systemize, something that I want to build up. But there's so many different creative ways that we can do this. So I'm just going to cover a bit about myself. It's difficult to see there, isn't it? Why I love cash flowing strategies and how I like to maximize those as well. I also loved what Trish had to say, because I'm a massive believer in life, in what goes around comes around. So by helping others, by helping, sellers, by helping vendors or landlords, in turn that help will, or support will, come back to you in the form of good deals and the way that you're doing things, good karma and stuff. And how using rent to rent has also helped me to be able to flow straight into doing purchase lease option deals. So a little bit about myself. So who am I? Well, I'm a father of two, fundamentally. That is the reason why I do things for my boys. I spent 16 years in the rat race working as a production manager for the Swift Group. I used to manage teams of 80 people. So you can imagine it was a very stressful time. And for 16 of those years, I'd say 6 of those, I just wanted to get out of that. I wanted to go and do something for myself. I spent 10 years working my way off the shop floor to get there. And I wanted to do more in life, not only for me, but also to have more time with my kids, with my family and things. So I decided that I wanted to get involved in property investing. I was just going to buy a couple of vanilla buy-to-lets up where I am, which is South Yorkshire. And just going for the accent now, because obviously I probably don't sound like I'm from South Yorkshire. I was born in Croydon. I moved to Bath when I was 10, which is why I sound like a farmer. And then 20 years ago, I moved up north, and I now live just outside of Sheffield. Now, when I left Bath in 2000, you could buy a 3-bed semi-detached for about £200,000 in Bath. I moved up north, and I bought a 3-bed semi-detached house for £48,000. Now, at the time, I wasn't as savvy about investing as I am now. I felt like putting that on a credit card, for starters. A friend of mine had properties in Bristol. He sold 4 properties. He bought 12 up north, and he's semi-retired. So I didn't have the mindset then. I was very much my own stumbling block, very much in my own way. And it took me another, 19 years actually to get out of my own way and start to invest. I just wish I'd bought more of those £48,000 houses, because I'd be in a hell of a different place now. So I was working head down, demoralized, wanted to change my life, wanting to get out there. 2018, I had to have an operation on my ankle, and that stopped me dead in my tracks. I had to have 2 months off of work, and for the first time, I felt like a number. I felt like I was replaceable. I felt like if I don't do something for myself long term, then I'm going to run out of time and not be able to do anything for myself. So I just happened to Google how to make money in property, and all of these networking events, all of these different strategies were on YouTube, were everywhere, and I was just like, I've never heard of these things before. It's got to be illegal. They must all be dodgy. I need to find out more about these things. But yeah, it was all of these things. So I started to go to networking events, and I started to mingle and mix with people like yourselves, people that are living, breathing it, that are doing it. And that is the moment that it showed me and proved to me that if you do a good job, if you systemize things, if you set yourself up as a business, you can achieve what goals you want to achieve. The one thing, and most of you, near enough all of you will know that here, property is not easy. You know, it's like anything else. There's ups and downs. It's hard. It's frustrating. Things always go wrong, and you know. But you've got to have a good reason why you're doing this. And I always think a lot of it. You know, we want wealth, we want money, but how much wealth, how much money do you actually want, or have you got it? Or can you give it a bigger purpose? So for me, it was all about making sure that I proved to my boys that if you want to go out there and do something and achieve something for yourself, you can do. So for me, in 2019, I took voluntary redundancy, which when you're getting started in property is probably one of the stupidest things you can possibly do, because it makes getting mortgages very, very difficult, doesn't it? But I just wanted to give myself that time freedom. I was going to do this alongside a full-time job. I had a 12-month plan to get out there, to build a property business alongside my full-time job. And like I say, the company pulled us all together. They wanted to make a manager redundant. I'm not being big-headed, or maybe I am being a little bit big-headed, but I don't think it was going to be me. I was pretty good at what I did. But as soon as they did that, I wanted to take it, and I just wanted to throw myself at property. By that time, I'd realized that I wanted to do, you know, stuff like lease options, which I thought were a bit of a pipe dream, to be quite honest with you. I thought, why would anybody ever do this? As I say, my mindset was very limited. But I thought to myself, I'll start a property management business, and I used the rent-to-rent strategy to do so with that sort of thing. So what have I achieved? Well, I invested in myself. As I say, talking about Paul and Mark and other people, I'm always watching what other people are doing, because you never know everything. You know, somebody always knows more than you, and that's why you want to keep surrounding yourself with people like this. And finding out what the latest strategies are, what the latest legislations are, how to set yourself up successfully. I was chatting to Tina about that at the break as well. You know, when you're starting a business, make sure you're compliant with everything. Be the property professional that you want to be. I have won awards. I also did the 12-month mastermind program in 2019. I was the top performer and the overall winner of that. I don't say that to brag or anything. I just say that because it was an achievement that I'm very, very proud of, because I have educated myself, I have invested in myself. In 12 months, using the rent-to-rent strategy predominantly, I managed to treble my income, which was from my corporate income. And that is something I'm very, very proud of, which gives me time freedom and the opportunities to come and talk to all you lovely people now. I have a rent-to-rent business. Now, I will say property management business. I don't really call it rent-to-rent business, because I never wanted to do rent-to-rent, but I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. But I have that with HMOs. I did HMOs initially just to try and build up the cash flow, and then I went into serviced accommodation as well. But my main focus, as is with most of you probably in here, is to own the properties or control the properties with the intention of buying them and owning them in the future. So I continue to help others, featured in YPM magazine, spoken at many events, and this, I have to say, is the best event I've spoken at so far. And I featured it, like I say, on YPN and things like that. I host the Property Unleashed podcast, which is just me sharing my learnings and my thoughts and things, which is something that I really, really enjoy. And if only one person ever listened to that podcast, and it was my mum, I'd still do it because I enjoy doing it. But I'll tell you what, she don't even listen to it. I asked her the other day. So why I love cash flowing strategies and how you can maximize your returns with those things, because it all starts and stops, so to speak, with you and what you can offer in your business. And when as I say, when I look at property, I always look at it as a property business. You know, rent-to-rent can be seen as a low-level strategy, as a beginner's strategy. And in many cases, the way it's ran and the way it's treated, it is. Because people are getting out there with little bits of knowledge, getting locked into contracts that fundamentally, sometimes the numbers don't work very well. I never wanted to do that. It was all about, for me, how can I actually start acquiring or looking after landlords' properties, but making it a win-win for everybody. Now, we'll always say, you've got to make it a win-win. And of course you have, but it's about making sure that they are getting what they need. There's no buyer's remorse from them, but we're getting what we need as well. And of course, if you're managing HMOs or you're managing service accommodation units, there is a lot of work that goes into those. So if you have them yourselves and you're using management agents and they're looking at charging you like 10% for managing big HMOs, you're not paying enough. And I know we all want to get maximum profits and things, but in many, many cases, and there may be some letting agents in here that are doing an absolutely brilliant job, but this is just going on my experience in my area. In many cases, they're just not earning enough money to be able to do an adequate job, which is why when you can come in and do a rent-to-rent in such a way that you control the property, you treat the property as if it's your own, then you can, as I say, make it that win-win. And of course, if you go to do a lease option later on down the line, if they ever want to sell it, you're in a perfect position to be able to do so. So as I say, it wasn't my first choice to get stuck into this, but I've used it to help build up my own portfolio. I now use a part of the money that I make from my rent-to-rent business to build my own portfolio up. And I bought 2 buy-to-lets last year, which I'll be quite honest with you. I always say don't get emotional when you're doing business, when you're doing property and things. There was a little bit of emotion attached to these buy-to-lets because the first thing that I wanted to do was to buy a property for each of my sons, an investment property for each of my sons. And I was buying 3 buy-to-lets last year. I went into went to a networking event. I did a talk. I came out and I checked my emails, and I'd actually had all my mortgages pulled because the interest rates had gone up and the mortgage provider that I was using. So all of a sudden I was looking at doing 3 deals and I wasn't doing any. So I think there's probably a few people that had that when it was all going crazy. Anyway, we changed the strategy there. I just wanted them as vanilla buy-to-let. So I decided to do serviced accommodation with them. So we got a mortgage. I did get mortgages for those, but a serviced accommodation package mortgage on those properties to make sure that they're set up right. And with the new legislations and rules that are coming in as well, I think that's very, very important when we're looking at doing these sorts of deals. So, there's a lot of people out there that maybe got buy-to-let mortgages that are doing SA. They're going to be asking the questions very, very soon when the new rules and regulations come in when it comes to that. And which is why I always say it's very important to make sure that you set yourself up for success from the beginning. I love buying properties and I love doing lease options as well, but it wasn't always the case when it was like that. And of course, controlling properties, as I say, can get you to places if you need to. You just need to make sure that you're doing it right. So just think, it's only a business. It's nothing personal. When you start dealing with, and when I say when you start, I'm probably just talking about myself. But when I start dealing with money, when I start dealing with things like that, it's all too easy to get emotional about it, to become a motivated buyer, as they say. And I try and distance myself from that. I've tried to build up the mindset that there's an abundance of money out there, because realistically, there is an abundance of money out there. I might not have that money, but there's loads of money out there. So I try not to get too attached to things. If I'm paying solicitors' fees, if I'm looking at different things and I'm paying this money out, and maybe then I need to step back and say, it's just not a good deal. If somebody brought that deal to me, would I still do it? It's really about just trying to build that mindset in that you don't have to do everything. So for myself, I like to, look at the property strategies, do them as business opportunities. Maybe they're not right for me. Maybe there's something I could pass on to somebody else in the future. But when I do a deal, I try to make sure that it's never personal. And have all my deals been amazing? I'd love to say yes, but they haven't. There's been deals that I've done that haven't been great. I've done rent-to-rent deals that were great in 2019, but then 2022, when the utility prices went through the roof, they weren't so good. So you go back, you speak to people, you communicate with people, you be open with them. I never hide anything. I like to try and be as transparent as possible so everybody knows where I am. And I have given properties back. We have break clauses because it's a business-to-business agreement. So never feel that you have to get yourself locked into anything that you cannot get out of. Because if you cannot get out of these things and you're locked into them for a long time, that's where you get yourself into real problems. You won't do a good job and you'll just start, basically the properties will become run down, and that's where you start hearing about all the bad things that are going on. So all the deals haven't been amazing, but as I say, you make sure that when you set them up in such a way that it's a win-win for all parties. Everybody's got the wiggle room that they need to be comfortable with. So don't have to keep the deals if you don't need to. Any deal I do needs to be a win-win. So like I say, it's making sure it's right. For argument's sake, I looked at 3 rent-to-rent properties in 2019, very ran down. They weren't deals that I do. I don't spend money on rent-to-rent deals, doing them up. The landlords do them up to a good manner. I will maintain them to that standard, but it is their property still. These 3 properties, 2 6-beds, 1 5-bed, were very run down, and I just said to him, you need to put a level of money. He wasn't willing to do so, but this year, the end of last year, beginning of this year, he's come back to us, and now we've had another look at his properties. He's just done 2 of them up. He's doing another one up, and we will now do a deal with him. because they're at that standard, they're at that level. So he's happy now with the peace of mind. He was getting poor rents. His properties were just attracting poor people to the properties, and they were just getting more and more run down and trashed. And because we've worked with people that he knows, other landlords, and we've been working with those for a few years now, he's happy to give us the properties, and he's given them to us at a very good price, which he's very, very happy with himself. He knows that we'll do a good job and, of course, maintain those assets. So I have, as I say, ended deals early, and it's all about setting the deals up in the right manners as well. And there are a lot of people out there that you can talk to, and I always say do your due diligence, as Mark and other people have touched on here. Make sure you do all your due diligence when you're meeting people, when you're talking to people, when you're getting advice from people, because obviously sometimes that advice might have some holes missing in it. It might not be telling you the actual facts that you want. So a few top tips here at the moment, just before I start jumping into some lovely, lovely case studies. You've got to actively listen to people. And this is something actually that I've got from Paul. So I might mention you a few times here, Paul. So you might go red over there. But it is actively listening. Now, myself, I like to talk. Okay, there's no two ways about it. When I get into a conversation, I like the sound of my own voice and stuff like that. But it's taken me I've really had to think about it to shut up, basically. Two ears, one mouth for a reason. So it's actively listening to people. When I first, started getting out there and talking about things, I had my bullet points and I'm asking questions. These are the things that I have to know about these properties. I need to make sure that I know all of these things. I wasn't really listening. I was just writing things down. Next question, next question. I wasn't building up rapport. I wasn't building up any know, like, and trust with anybody. And you can look at that with any deals that you're doing. But it is all about relationships. It is all about making sure that you're listening to what the people actually need, because there's no point in trying to bang a round peg into a square hole, as they say, by me just thinking, well, this suits me, but I don't even know what they actually need and want. And what I've found is, since I've actually stopped talking so much and actively listened to people, I've done better deals, I've done quicker deals, and it's really, really helped me. In most cases, when you start talking to anybody when they've got problems and things, and Trish touched on this as well, you'll get the fluff. Because people won't want to tell you everything. Okay, this is another thing that I've learned massively, is they'll start just telling you what they think, so this might be a problem, that might be a problem. It's probably not the underlying problem. So by building up, by actively listening to them, by getting them to, talk with open-ended questions and things, you'll start to dig deeper. They'll start to trust you, and they'll start to actually communicate with you better. You get the real answers when you're just chatting. When you're just having a conversation, all of a sudden, the guard will go down ever so slightly as you're going through in the stages, and you'll start to get more and more of the facts of what the situation is and what it's all about. And as I say, when you're talking about, buying below market value, but you don't know that somebody's going to be financially in trouble, that's where you can get them in the conversation. They might slip up, they might start telling you these things, because it is very, very... We're looking at a below market value in London at the moment. I was just talking to Mark about it, and it is seriously below market value, but the guy is in a bit of trouble. So we've got to make sure, our solicitor said to us, we have to make sure that he's not about to go belly up, because if we do this deal, we risk, which Trish said, as soon as she said it, I was like, yeah, we're going through that now. We risk the fact that it could come back and bite us, and that deal might not be such a good deal. So everybody's going through, it's loads and loads of red tape that you don't always know about. And I didn't know about that until the solicitor started saying to me that if he goes belly up and you bought this off him at that value, they're going to come back and see why that's happened, and it's almost like he's giving you something, as a backhander. So you've got to be very, very careful with that. Remember to make sure the deal... Remember to make sure if the deal is not working, you can exit it, because it's very easy to get into deals and think, right here, right now, this works brilliantly. We don't know what's going to happen in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. When I took on some of my first deals in 2019, I didn't foresee the utilities going that far through the roof. Now, they've come down a bit and steadied a bit now, and there's some great... tools and systems that you can install into your properties. We use one from Wiser, and we put Bluetooth valves on all of the radiators there, and we can actually control and regulate the heating, so that if somebody, say Tim downstairs is always cold and Susan upstairs is always warm, she's got the windows open, all our heating's going straight out, all our profits are going down the road, we can actually regulate her heating in it, and people can do it with their own valves. But will they do it? No. So we do it for them. So I have a virtual assistant that does that for them, and we regulate the heating around the house, keeps the cost down. It's all right in the summer, but obviously when it becomes winter and everybody's boosting every 5 minutes, you need to make sure. And of course, if you've got serviced accommodations, it's brilliant there to be able to control the whole heating just by the click of a button. So that's been a great thing for us. But make sure that you've got exits in whatever deals you're doing if you need them. And of course, talk about those exits with the vendors as well, or whoever you're doing the deals with. And rent to rent can be a way to practice in different areas. So for myself, there's 2 deals that I'm going to show you here, which are HMOs, that I wouldn't have done purchase lease options on initially because I wouldn't have been 100% sure that they were going to work as well as they have. But because I managed them, because I did a rent-to-rent deal first on these, I know that they work. I also know that I could buy properties in the areas there now, and I could cookie cutter what works. So it is a great way to practice. And now when I say practice, we never want to do a deal that we're not going to do the term. So I do 5-year deals, but they have break clauses in. But I intend to look after and control the properties for at least 5 years, or potentially buy the properties or lock in a lease option as I'm going along, of course. But I make sure that I've got the long-term vision. I'm not just going in there to practice with somebody and then hand it back and say, well, that one doesn't work, that one doesn't work. You know, it's not that, I'm just trying to put it across in such a manner that it doesn't make it, well, he's just messing about and he's playing at it. I'm not playing at it, but of course, I can exit it if need be. So think, if you knew you couldn't fail, or, you know, would you do the deals? And that's another thing that I look at as well, because when you set the goalposts there and you know you can score goals very, very easily, I know what rents out, I know what works. It's very, very easy then to just say I can act quickly on those deals. Why? Because I don't want anybody else snapping those deals up. I want to be in there. I want to be taking those deals out. So that's something that I like to do there. So controlling other people's properties to help them, to help you, I ask all the landlords if they want to sell it sometime in the future. So anybody I speak to, unless, of course, the property is for sale, I always say to my landlords, if you're looking to sell your properties in the future, then just come to me before estate agents and things like that. We can get independent valuers and things, but let's make sure that I don't want to buy them first, because we can cut all of that out. And it's not that I always want it below market value either, because, of course, if I can give something to somebody on their terms, I can look at the price that I want, or if they want their price, they can look at giving me their property on my terms. And that my terms might be that I buy it in the future. And, of course, another thing is we all can be quite flippant with how we talk about things. So I want to do rent-to-rents, SA, I want to do PLOs and all of, as again was said earlier, people won't understand all of that. So you've got to speak in their language. So what a lot of us now, you know, we all start here somewhere. I was here. I would say I'm about here now, but there's stages to everything. So when you're talking to agents, sometimes we like to think, even commercial agents, they'll be up here with us. They'll get it, but they don't. It's a job for them. I'm not going to start singing, but I might do. But it's a job for them. So a lot of people, you know, if you think back to when you were doing your jobs, they don't want to take all the time and effort to learn everything. They just want to turn up, get the commissions and crack on. Now, there are more savvier people and stuff like that as well. But we've got to make sure that we keep it in easy terms for people. So I just always keep it stupid simple, I like to say, a bit like me. Just keep things as simple as possible so that it works. Simple works. So make sure that when you're talking to people and things, and maybe you are, that you're keeping it in simple terms. I want to lock a price in the future. So yeah, if you want to sell it, come and talk to me and let's have a little discussion about this. I've had 5 landlords, sorry. Well, I've actually had 6 now, but I've had 5 landlords come and do that and say I wanted to sell. One, he did need to sell very quickly. The property wasn't the best property and I wasn't interested in it. So we issued the break clause, which we had on a rent-to-rent agreement. That was 2.5 years into it. He's taken the property back now and he's gone on to sell it. Now, if I'd have wanted that property, I would have had to have bought it because he needed it. So you've also got to look at the terms and conditions of what do they actually need right now. He needed the cash out of that, so that was never going to work for me anyway. But the fact of the matter is, I might have bought it if it was one of my higher generating properties. And that's when I say when you're practicing with things, you get a real idea of what works and what's around. I've done 2 deals with existing landlords currently, and I've done another deal on the property that I live in now, which, to be quite honest with you, we weren't ever planning on moving for the next few years, but because this property came up, and I'll go through that in a case study in a second, that's why we've done a deal on it and moved into it. Both of these ended up in purchase lease options. So one of the first deals that I actually did a purchase lease option on was with a landlord who, this is a 6-bed property. He doesn't have a mortgage on the property. He lives down south. He had other people managing the property for him. I was actually just about to take it on as a rent-to-rent because the agents weren't doing a very good job. And I just said to him flippantly, as I do, thinking about selling it in the future? Well, I am actually. I am interested in selling it because it's just a pain. It's just a hassle. It's no mortgage. But he doesn't care about the property. He doesn't really, he just doesn't want to hear about it. So I thought to myself, well, it's got no mortgage on it. He's not really interested in the money now. The guy's got a few quid, I reckon. So at the end of the day, what I can do then is just look at maybe taking the hassle away from him. I'll control the property. It was in an area where we already had some other properties, and we'll do a deal. So as I say, he lived a long way away. He wanted to remove the hassle, as much hassle as possible. The property is not a priority to him, and this is a 6-bed, all-en-suite HMO in South Yorkshire. So market value was about 180 to 2,000. We agreed 2,000, and it needed a little updating in the kitchen only. So he'd done a very good job on all the property. Was really, really nice. But for whatever reason, they just hadn't updated the kitchen. Now the kitchen still actually hasn't been updated. We have changed the doors and things, but that is something that we will look to do before we actually purchase it. We've agreed a 5 to 7 year agreement on it. So pretty much I've got to make sure that I've bought it within that time scale. So I wanted to give myself plenty of leeway just in case the market, with interest rates going the way they are right here, right now, I'm glad that we've got a bit longer on these deals because I can see what the lay of the land's doing. So like I say, no mortgage there, but I will be taking a mortgage when I get it, and I can assign the option as well. So one thing with purchase lease options that I do is I always like to make them assignable just in case I don't want to do the deal. But when somebody says to me, well, what happens if I assign it to you and you don't want to do it, you hand the property back? I always say, first and foremost, I will try and find you a buyer. So if I can assign it to somebody else, even if I'm not going to buy it, I can potentially get another investor to buy the property. We're still managing it, so we don't lose it out of our portfolio. And we make it a win-win for everybody like that. So some people get locked into it and you can't assign it and you can't do things like that. I always like to make sure that the contracts that we do are assignable to a third party. The agreed price was 200K. Now I pay him £1,000 a month. Basically like a lease fee, like a rent-to-rent fee, guaranteed rent on the property. This comes off the end price. So in effect, I'm sort of paying in installments for the property. So the longer I can keep it on the lease, so to speak, on the rent-to-rent deal, I am paying down, so to speak, the price of the property, which works very, very well for us. So 5 years' time, I hopefully will have, I'll have paid off 50K off of the £200,000 asking price. I also, looking at the market rent, is £2,630, £30. As I say, the fee to the landlord is £1,000. The running costs are all about 720 quid. So I make about £910 per calendar month on this property. And what I've done with these properties is I take £300 from that. Now this is on averages, because that doesn't happen every month. Sometimes I have voids, sometimes I have maintenance fees and things. But we try and take about 300 and then whatever else we need to take maybe for voids or maintenance a month off of that for the running costs of it all. And the rest of it is a pot that I have to the side as well for decorating, for refurbishments, for doing it up as well. So I like, as I say, to set things up as a business. I like to also make sure that I have different pots that I can just park and leave, so that if somebody says to me, right, it's time for that new kitchen, how much have we got in the pot? Right, we'll start putting that towards it. So I'm not just spending all the money that I'm making. I'm trying to build and grow my assets by making sure that I'm reinvesting a lot of the money that I make back into the properties that I'm looking to control. So that's a sweet little deal. The next one, it wasn't quite as good, but it's still another good deal. And this is a 6-bed with shared bathrooms. It's got 2 rooms with 2 en-suites, and then 4 of the rooms shared 2 bathrooms each, but the rooms are absolutely humongous. So really, it's got a lot of potential to be about an 8-bed, potentially in the future, because the layout of it and the way the rooms are and everything like that, there's plenty of scope there. And of course, if you can look to add value on any properties like this as well, you don't have to talk about that just yet, when you're trying to do the deal. But if you know yourself, well, we could add a bit more value here, we could go into the cellar, into the loft or anything like that, then it's always a bonus, because of course you can always look to try and get that work done before you then actually buy the property. So if it's worth a bit more as well, of course, it makes it easier for you to get your financing and your mortgages on the property. So the landlord's happy to sell in a few years and has other properties as well, but this is the only HMO that he currently has. We've locked in a price of 180. Market value is around 196 at the moment, but one sold recently for that. That he has a mortgage on it until 2025, so we're not going to do anything till then, but that's when he fundamentally wants to sell the property off and get out of it. So I haven't got a lot of time, well, as much time on this. I think I did this one in 2020. The gross rent for this one, again, is £2,624. The monthly fee to the landlord is £1,100. Now, this doesn't come off the end price because, well, he just wouldn't do it. I tried my best. So I said to him, I'll pay you I said to him, I'll pay £1,000 and it comes off the end price. No, I said, I'll tell you what, then I'll pay you £1,100 and it comes. And 6 beds, well, you're not earning anything up there. But of course, the cost of living is a bit cheaper up there as well. So these are numbers for South Yorkshire, just outside of Sheffield and things, because, like I said, I just thought I'd say that little caveat. Again, the options are signable, and the house is in good condition. But we plan on updating it before we actually buy it. So we may even look to see if we can add a couple of extra rooms with it as well. I'm quite, I can't say quite good friends with the HMO officer, I'm not really. But I get on all right with him. But of course, that person could change as well. So I always like to speak to the council about things, obviously show them what we're trying to do, show them what we intend to do, because it is now in an Article 4 and it would have to go through planning and things like that. But even if we just leave it the same, take it on, do what we need to do with it, just update it a bit. We could even add a couple more en suites. It's a great little deal to be done. And again, it's just come from existing people that I already know. And you'll all know yourself, in property, it's all about relationships. It's all about meeting people, shaking hands. The more viewings you can do, the more people you can meet, the more opportunities you will come across. And it's all about opportunities. They are everywhere. Opportunities always used to pass me. I always used to think, oh, he's lucky or she's lucky. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'm thinking about, how can I acquire the property right here, right now? I've just bought a couple of buy-to-lets as well. So my cash is gone, or my cash reserves is gone, and I don't really want to pump it all into a residential property anyway. I would actually rather rent it out. So I thought, well, worst case scenario now, she's happy. We can rent the property out. So, and this is the beauty of it as well. Like I say, it's personal. So get into the discussions and stuff. He's quite a savvy investor himself. He's got a lot of buy-to-lets. He's bought another house. You know what I mean? So he's refinanced this house now because he couldn't sell it, and he's bought another house. So he's now locked into a mortgage. So I thought, well, that's good, because now, you won't want to pay penalty fees or anything like that. The house itself is worth it's about 283K. 300K, sorry. I wish it was 3K. Which, again, in South Yorkshire land, that's a decent house. Down here, you might be thinking, well, 300 grand. I've got a 2 up, 2 down for 300 grand, but trust me, it's a 5-bed detached house. It is a nice house. And it's in great condition, all done up. So he's locked into his mortgage terms. We've agreed a fee of 310. Now, the reason you might be saying, well, that's not a great deal, Mark. Well, it is for me at the end of the day, because I became a motivated buyer, didn't I? Because I knew for a fact that if I didn't make a deal happen, I was sleeping with the dog in the kennel for the next 2 weeks. So I had to make sure that something happened. So the emotion went a little bit there. But of course, practicality of it is he's remortgaged it. He's mortgaged up to about 280 on the property by what he's been doing and how he's been moving money around and things like that. So he can't sell it for anything less than that, or he doesn't want to sell it for less than that from what he's telling me. So we agreed a price of 310. We've got an agreement, and we've locked it until the mortgage, is locked in until 2026. So that's when we'll be looking to do something, either purchasing it or assigning it to somebody else. The monthly rent on this property should be about £1,900 to £1,800. So by agreeing a price, as I said to him, so would you be happy at £300,000, which is about the market rate now for that property? He was like, well, yeah. I said, but obviously I can't buy it now, but we could lock it in now, and I'll take all the hassle away from you. I'll look after the property as if it's my own, and basically pay you, your rent each month until we take the property on. And he says, oh, I like that. He says, well, obviously capital growth and things like that. And that was when I just thought, you know what, for the sake of it, if you could take a lesser rent, because if I was going to live in that property or rent one like that, it's going to cost me just under £2,000 a month. I said, if we can do something around the 1,300 mark, which gives you, a higher price, I'll buy it. So I'll buy it at 310, which means that you've got at least, 30 grand potentially equity there, however you look at it. And of course, you've got the monthly rents coming in as well. So he's quite happy with that, because he just wants the hassle removed so he can move. He's safe in the knowledge that he hasn't got all the mortgages to be paying as well, because initially he was going to be moving anyway at the end of August. So we managed to do the agreement. We've got, as I say, 1K of the rent comes off the end price. So around 48K will come off of that price, which we're paying him now. So overall, it's a sweet little deal. So I've offered him more and I've paid him more so that I could then make the terms a little bit more into my favour. And of course, we look after the property for him and things like that.
Let me get that right. You're agreeing to 262 with him if you run the 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, again, the mortgage is assignable, and we managed to get that deal over the line. Well, pretty much over the line, but we rented it first, and then, well, as we got the contracts done, in 3 weeks. So we actually went from our house of not moving and staying where we were to actually moving into a new property in 3 weeks. And that was a hectic 3 weeks, I can tell you that for a fact right now. But I love it. I've got my own office in there now. The family's a lot happier. We've got a lot more space and things. But it just goes to show that while we're looking at, investing in rental properties, commercial properties, never think, always think, how can I make where I live better as well? Do these deals to sort out your own lives, to help yourselves, to push yourselves forward. And that was something that I hadn't really thought about until it basically fell in my lap. And that was really then when I looked to move the family and to get stuck in. So I like to think of property as a vehicle at the end of the day, so it's working for us, it's not enslaving us, and it's very, very easy to get caught up in the weeds when you're doing property, tenants and things and calling you. So I've systemized my business. I have 3 virtual assistants. I have 1 full-time, 2 part-time. A little tip there is when you actually want to have virtual assistants, and some of you might already have some, when you have enough work to have 1 full-time virtual assistant, don't have 2 part-time assistants in case they choose to leave and you have to start all over again training them up. So as I've built systems in there, I've also got Sarah, who used to be my cleaner actually. She had a cleaning firm and used to clean all my HMOs. Her cleaning firm still does, but she is not my cleaner anymore. She now employs 2 people in her firm, which I've helped her with. So her firm cleans my properties, but she is now my tenant manager. So she's got a ventured interest in my rent-to-rent business as well. So she is the life and soul. She loves talking to tenants. Now, I didn't know anybody like that existed. I honestly didn't until I met Sarah, and she loves it. And the beauty is, if there are problems, and don't get me wrong, there are problems, she is so warm and so, it's almost like a lot of the tenants feel obliged to, talk to her, and she's very, very good. So she's worth her weight. So she's a single mother. She's got 3 children. She can do all of this around her children. So she's also got a bit of a lifestyle with it. She's got a ventured interest in the business. And that's why I say build businesses that you can systemize, that you can do what you enjoy, and then you don't have to do everything else. I did have to wear all the hats to begin with, but now I don't. So always look for the property problem. So a lot of people will scroll and look for properties. Oh, look at that property, look at that property. I would always say and recommend that you look for the problem. Find a motivated seller, somebody who's got an issue, somebody who's got a problem, because you're more inclined to get the better deals or more inclined to be able to work with those people. And again, exactly the same what Trish said there is find the problem and you'll find the deal. And of course, as long as you can do an ethical solution with people on those deals, you will do some really, really good deals. And there's so many people out there now that need your help. It really is. I mean, it's like an AA meeting this now, isn't it? How can we go out there and help everybody? But really, go with that mentality that it is really about how can we help people? If we can't, who do we know who can help the people? So, by networking with people here, you might turn around, I might think, well, that's not quite for me. It's not quite in my area. Who do I know? Well, I know Mark can do something like that. Or, I know AJ can do something like that and help that person, because I'm a massive believer in life, and what goes around comes around. By helping others, it will come back to you tenfold. So make sure that you are connecting with each other. I think that's brilliant with the emails and stuff being sent out as well. Connect with each other and help each other out. Have a vision, know why you're doing the deals, because property is hard. People who are savvy investors here know it's hard. People who are starting out and stuff, we can get all too easily caught up in the glory of the wealth, financially free and all of that. It's hard. There's plenty of blood, sweat and tears when you're building property businesses, when you're involved in property. And I say blood, sweat and tears, and plenty of tears along the way. But it is worth it. And as I say, systemize it, get it built up, but know why you're doing it. Look to do deals for the long term. Have plenty of time. Plenty of time in the market, because markets do change. So make sure that you've got ways to get out of deals if need be, which is what I do fundamentally with my HMOs, whether it's serviced accommodation, which we do, and of course HMOs. and make your deals assignable for flexibility as well. So if you are doing, if you're deal sourcing and stuff and you're doing deals, you want to do options on those so that you can assign to other people, so you can put that lock-in agreement in, okay? So a lot of the times when you're doing deals and you're worried about getting bamboozled, if you can lock in, potentially a purchase option, then you've locked in that you're going to buy it or you're going to assign it to somebody else to buy. So that can be a very good way of doing deals as well. And treat property as a business. Keep the emotion out of the deals, and don't take my wife on any viewings with you, okay? So basically, that's a little bit about me. If you want to reach out and connect with me, socials are on Linktree there. I have the Property Unleashed podcast that has 2 episodes coming out every week. And I would just say one thing, and I'm looking at a lot of blank faces here, which I don't know whether it's a good sign or a bad sign. But if you have enjoyed this and you've taken one thing from it, if you could go on your podcast channels and leave me a 5-star review, that would be amazing. But if you listen to the podcast and you don't like it, don't leave a review, because that would help me out. We also offer a bit of training, a bit of coaching, but feel free to reach out to me. And as I say, if you've got a property problem and I can help you, I will point you in the right direction. If I can't help you, then I probably know somebody that can help you. I thank you ever so much for your time today. And like I say with Mark, we're open for any questions and stuff. Thank you very much.